just happened in this story? Let's unpack this just for a minute. Let's reflect. Yes, we witnessed a man moved by the plight of others to take action. Yes, we see him outwit social inertia and find a way to make his talents available. Yes. And yes, we observed that homeless people were served that night at the church, but as it turns out, this is not a one-shot deal. And that's the interesting question, why not? Interesting for him and for you. And to know that, you need to know, or you need to remember, or you need to learn for the first time, as I did, what is the story behind the name, Gennesaret? So I was told about the Bible story behind your name. It's in Luke 6:53. Villagers at a place called Gennesaret, little village, learn that Jesus is going to walk along a path, certain path, narrow path. Now on one side of the path there is a tall cliff, and on just the other side there is the Sea of Galilee. And the villagers bring out their sick and they place them all along the path in the hopes that just the fringe of Jesus' garment, if it touches them, will be enough to heal them. And as the folks I interviewed said, the choice of Gennesaret for your name is meant to imply that when we reach out to the fringes of society, we help to heal not just the sick, but by that action we help heal ourselves. That man, our doctor who heard that calling, he too partook of the healing that he was giving out. He got as good as he gave, and so it wasn't a one-shot deal. It was the first shot, but it surely wasn't the last. But you know this part. You know this part too, right? Because isn't that why you two have come along on this journey? Isn't that why you've come back again and again? Haven't we heard that already tonight? Friends, you can count the seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the apples in a seed. That bears repeating. You can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. So what has grown from our doctor's first experience, what has come from that first seed? Well, as far as I can gather from interviewing folks working and volunteering today, and from going back and reading all of your quarterly newsletters, at least the ones that are online, what's grown up is this wide-ranging organization you've come to know, but which still remains, importantly, true in every crucial respect to the original impetus that started it off, gave it life. As others learned of his work, one man's task became the task of many. They wanted to try their hands too. Groups formed until there were 2 shifts a week of 12 teams. Organizational structure later took shape. There's a board of directors, an executive director, a staff, and so many volunteers. I learned about this. A mobile unit was conceived, and a van was bought. It's not that it's not that big fancy RV we heard about. Okay, it was a van, an old van, and I learned that the van was used and wrecked, and used and wrecked again and again. I heard the van was wrecked 50 times. The van was well used. New places to offer aid were visited. The old lighthouse mission, the good news mission, off the floor now and working in the lap of luxury. Volunteers and doctors worked now under a bare bulb, sitting astride bunks stacked 3 tall, separated by cardboard walls, while rats and roaches roamed the premises. And with just enough space between the bunks so that the volunteers were able to bang their heads at least once every evening. The anecdotes begin to pile up. Once, when passing out combs and socks and clothes, a guy at the back of the line, waiting to get his goods, yells out, "Hey, got any cologne?" Once, after a session passing out clothes to others in need, one of the volunteers, a person known to be hyper-conscious about his own snappy attire, makes a startling revelation. Maybe clothes aren't everything. Once, a homeless man reveals to a Gennesaret volunteer that despite receiving several degrees in higher education, he has elected to remain homeless for many years because of, quote, something I did in the past. And the volunteer thinks for a minute and says, you know, I think God forgave you a long time ago. Surely you can forgive yourself. Even words, just words, the right words, at the right moment, can work wonders. The man turns his life around. Once, an entire troop of Boy Scouts shows up at a clinic seeking a physical. They have no money. Who is staffing that day? An internist and a neonatal care specialist. Hadn't done pediatric care in years. But they look at those faces. They see those faces, those eager faces. They want to be Boy Scouts. They want to be a Boy Scout. They just don't have the money to get the physical. And the internist and the neonatal care specialist, they look at each other and say, let's do it. Once, a Gennesaret volunteer worked hard to get cancer treatment for a woman who urgently needed the treatment. And not only that, she stood by her through the whole process, even including the time when that woman eventually fell into a coma. That volunteer thought, we failed. We failed her. But that same volunteer went to the grocery 3 months later, only to have that same woman come up to her, and she hugged her, and she kissed her, and she said, thank you for saving my life. Failed? I don't think so. Now, the bean counters in the established system, all those who said no, 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 who said you can't do this kind of work, who said it just can't be done, it won't count, they're the ones who failed. They failed. They failed to understand what all these stories have to tell us. Einstein once said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. But thanks for saving my life. That counts. That counts in ways that are beyond measure. So much so that who is to say in that situation, who's the giver and who's the receiver?